everyone. Welcome to United in Mission podcast, One Heart and One Mind. I'm John Gonzalez, the Communications Director here at the Catholic Diocese of Saginaw, and we're excited. We have the Pfaff family with us. How are you guys doing?
Doing really good.
Good. Well, we spent some time, Aaron, you and I talking about this incredible family and their journey and their story. Why don't you tell people real quick about the family?
Okay. Well, I'm Erin Carlson, and thank you, John, for allowing me to be part of this conversation. Lisa and I first met over the phone. You called back in January of 2021. Mm-hmm. And Lisa, you had mentioned at the time that you had seen, so Great Lakes Bay Catholic Magazine used to be Faith Magazine at that time. So you'd seen your issue of Faith Magazine sitting on the counter, and you said it happened to be open to where my editorial was. And so you kind of saw my face, my information, and felt really, I think you described it as really a nudge from the Lord to just pick up the phone and call, because as of that time you hadn't shared publicly your story yet. Right. I'll kind of turn it over to you to share that piece of it. Right. But back in January of 2021 was when you called, and really I'll never forget that day. I won't forget your call. And maybe if you would just kind of walk people through who aren't familiar. A lot of people are familiar with your story, but for those who aren't, maybe we start at the beginning. And if you could just share what you shared with me back at that time in 2021 about what your family had been through.
Okay, sure. So we have went through a lot. Basically on March 5th, 2014, really started the day before. On March 4th, Derek was coming home from a ski trip from up north, and he was with his friends, and he'd been going through some tough times, very hard on himself with school and college and classes. So on spring break, as a getaway, he went up to skiing and came home on Tuesday and had his friends back over. And that night before he went to bed, he came up into the living room, and I was sitting there watching TV, and he said, tomorrow's Ash Wednesday. And he said, let's get up and we'll go to church together. And he attended a Catholic school from kindergarten through, 8th grade at Our Lady of Lake Huron. So we knew it was the kids' mass, and his brother and sister were going to be there. So we had made plans to go to church that morning. And so that was the plan. Hugs, kiss, goodnight, and we went to bed. And then my husband gets up for work at 1 a.m, and I thought, well, I'll just get up and check on Derek. And I went to his bedroom, and he wasn't laying in his room. And that's not typical. But he had friends over, so I thought, well, maybe they're still downstairs. So I went downstairs and told my husband, I said, Derek's not in his room. So he, I ran in the basement and I ran back up. I'm like, well, he's not in the basement. We started, frantically searching the house. And then Jerry went outside, and I was still searching the house. And we found his keys. We found his wallet. So we knew his car was home. And then I heard Jerry start screaming. And he was yelling, no, Derek, no, why, no, and started screaming, that he had shot himself. And
Jerry, I know, sorry to interrupt, but Jerry, I know that, watching the video that we produced and watching that and reading Aaron's first story, that you being there on the scene, just to witness that had to be...
It was terrible.
Yes.
One of the worst things you'll ever see in that. Didn't want her to see him, and do you wait for the ambulance or try to take him yourself or get the neighbor to help? And I literally picked him up, threw him in the back of the pickup, and they even said that I actually knew what I was doing. Good thing I did a FaceTime because we live up 3 miles out of town. He said he would have drowned in his own blood.
Yeah, so let's
that's a sure sign.
That's a sure sign, right?
It was the first miracle
That was
right
the first
there.
one. That's
The
what-
first
yeah.
one. The first one.
He
And
said he wouldn't have made it 3 miles, and I didn't know what I was doing. So.
Well, that's the thing about this whole story, right? I mean, it's a national release now. The Mayo Clinic will get to the big reveal, although you look great there.
Thank you.
So obviously that's the big national story, right? The Mayo Clinic, the face transplant, Not very many of them happen.
Mhm.
Since what, 2016, I think. They've only done 50 of them
Less than
around
50 in the world.
in the world.
In the world.
So there's a big story here that's going to be circulating, and then also our current magazine, the November-December issue of Great Lakes Bay Catholic, will have the complete story. Erin does just a masterful job of capturing everything and the emotion, the roller coaster ride, and so I think people will be touched by this story. But the thing that struck me is these miracles along the way. And that very first miracle, I'm glad we started the story there, because that seemed to like set everything into motion to where we are today. Would you agree?
Absolutely. You know, and we didn't even realize that at the time, right? So Jerry then took him up to our local hospital, and it's a small hospital, and the doctor there, even because Derek's face was gone. I mean, the gunshot wound had taken his face. And when he arrived at the hospital, the first thing was to get him an airwave, right? But there were no markers on his face for her to find an airwave. And, you know, she even said, you know, she stood there and said a prayer, you know, God, if he's supposed to live, show me a way to make this happen. And without any landmarkers on his face, she put it in the first time, and she found an airwave immediately. And that was like miracle number 2 right away that night. He should have died that night. He didn't. And, you know, we called my dad, who then went and got Father Bill at the time, and brought him because obviously the news that was getting communicated to us wasn't good about Derek. And I didn't want him to die without having a final blessing.
Yeah.
And so Father Bill came and gave him a final blessing and sat with him in the room with him until he was transferred out to Flint.
You weren't allowed in it?
Yeah, so my husband and I were not allowed in the room with him.
Derek, I know you don't remember anything from that whole night. I read somewhere that you thought you might have been in a car accident.
That was at Henry Ford. Like, why am I here? What's going on? I asked Mom, why am I here? What happened?
Right.
She told me, oh, we wrote it down. We couldn't talk. You got an accident. All right, accident, car accident. I wrote down who that hurt anyone. She said no. She told me what, you know, I tried to take my life. I wrote down I would never do that. And from there, my heart sunk. Like, why would I do that to myself?
Right. But when you hear these stories of your dad finding you at the first miracle, of making sure that you were, you know, in the vehicle, okay, that you didn't drown in your own blood. When you hear the second miracle, where the doctor finds a way to keep you living. When you've been hearing these stories for a while now, how does that make you feel?
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the man upstairs. A lot could have went wrong that initial night, but we were able to make it through it. And I mean, thank God for Henry Ford, for the surgeries they done, keeping me alive.
Yeah, a lot of people have played a hand in it, right? And it all starts with the big guy.
No, absolutely. You know, and just even, you know, something that we haven't shared a lot, but, you know, part of the journey and part of God's story is, you know, Derek was in the hospital, you know, transferred from Flint then to Henry Ford, and where we were talking about organ donation. And my husband and I, you know, had been talking about harvesting Derek's organs for others to live. And so we had made that decision. And then, you know, once we arrived at Henry Ford, you know, they did some additional testing and said that there is some brain movement. We're not sure of his quality of life. We don't know what his life is going to look like. We're not sure what quality of life he'll have, but we're not going to give up hope yet. And that was a pretty remarkable part. And, you know, multiple things through the journey, you know, of just, you know, God being with us. They told us, you know, that he would end up in a rehab center and he wouldn't walk out of the hospital. right? And I'm like, well, you don't know my son and you don't know me. And my son is going to walk out of here with his head held high. And, on Mother's Day weekend, we did. We went home in May. And that was the goal, was to come for Mother's Day weekend. And we have 4 other children, and we were able to go home for Mother's Day weekend, and Derek walked out of the hospital with no wheelchair.
Wow.
And what was something very unique, I think, about God's hand with Derek is at the hospital and even at home, when Derek would look in the mirror, Derek could only see from his neck down.
Mm.
Derek could not see his face. But Derek could see me, and Derek could see his dad,
He just couldn't see himself.
and he couldn't see himself. And I would tell him over and over again, God isn't ready for you to see your face yet, because you're not ready. One day you will be able to see your face. And I was home with him, and he started yelling. We have a 2-story home, and I was upstairs, and he was in the bathroom, and he started yelling, "Mom, Mom," like very alarming. And I went running, and I was like, "What is wrong with you? What's wrong? What's wrong?" I thought something had happened. And he was standing in front of the mirror over the sink, just staring at himself. He's like, "I can see my face. I can see my face." And I grabbed his arm, and I said, "It's because God said you're ready. And God wanted you to see your face now." And so there's just so many examples of God's hand in Derek's story that we just knew, right?
Janitor.
So even, the janitor, and we'd shared that
Oh,
story
yeah,
about,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
that was
please
awesome.
share it.
That was
you
nice.
know,
That was neat.
Derek was in a 26-hour surgery.
The first one.
Was this at Henry Ford?
It was at Henry Ford.
When they're
Yeah.
back together somewhat.
So initially they took him into a 26-hour surgery to try to pull back as much as they could of his face, and they put a fixator on and trying to get his jawbones of what was left, the particles, to see if they could fuse back together. And I was sitting in the waiting room saying my rosary, and this janitor kept going back and forth, and he stopped and he said, I see that you're praying. And I said, I am. I said, my son's in a very, very long surgery right now. And he said, well, can I sit with you and pray? And Jerry and I were like, we would love that. And he sat with us and we prayed, and then he shared with us that he had recently lost his son in a car accident. And he shared with what he said about the power of prayer.
I said, remember the power of prayer. He walked away, we never seen the guy again. We spent a lot of hours in that place.
And we never seen him again.
Never.
So I said, his name was Joe, and Joe was just a guardian angel there that night, telling us, don't lose faith, don't lose faith. It's going to be okay. And those are just the signs along the way that have just given us, faith and hope.
Yeah.
Because it's been a long 10 years.
Yeah.
From 2014 to 2024, it's just, he underwent 58 surgeries at Henry Ford. And then, fast forwarding to June of 2020, Derek went in for what we thought was going to be a long surgery. And that surgery was actually pushed back because COVID had broke out, right, in February. So we were initially hoping that surgery would be in February. It got pushed back till June. And about 4 hours into his surgery, his doctor walked. I saw his doctor walking into the waiting room, and I just started crying because he had tears in his eyes, and he was crushed. You could just see that he was just physically crushed, his facial expression. And he came and sat down, and Jerry and I were holding hands, and he said, surgery didn't go as planned. And there's nothing more that I can do. And the only option left is a face transplant for Derek. And I was just sobbing because from 2014 to 2020, you look forward to every next surgery. right? That is how you plan your schedule. You plan your life. It's like, okay, we're at number 30. All of a sudden you're at 35, you're at 40, and you plan each month by your next surgery. And then to hear someone say there's nothing more that I can do and it didn't work. I had seen Derek go through so much pain and agony, and he never complained, and he never was down. And he was the one always like, next surgery, we're gonna keep going.
Keep the ball moving.
Keep the ball moving. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. And I just at that moment, you see all those surgeries going through your mind and the pain and what he's went through, and I said, well, if this is God's plan,
Yeah.
there's another way, right? And if this is the option, then once Derek gets out of recovery and he's able to talk about it, we're going to talk about it, and that's what we did.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, we will talk about the face transplant in a second.
Okay.
Before we do that, Aaron, can you just share with everyone the magazine article comes out? It'll be in homes later in November, right?
Yes, so I believe right now people could go online and take a look at the article online, going to GreatLakesBayCatholic.org, and then also check your mailbox because it's coming in the mail. The print softcover copy of the magazine will be there, and really just going through the journey and seeing pictures. An awesome picture from the reveal when you were there at Mayo Clinic. So Again, this has been a story that has touched so many hearts across our diocese and beyond. It's one of those stories that people are always, still to this day, calling and asking for updates. How's Derek doing? And just, we've talked about this, the outpouring of financial support, but also just spiritual support, the people who've prayed and just really been accompanying you with their prayerful support, including our bishop. He's one who often is asking, like, how's Derek? When you were going through right before the surgery, I remember messaging him. Derek's going into surgery, so he's very, when he heard that everything went great, and just seeing what you look like today, he's been one of your great supporters and prayer warriors. So yeah, just a wonderful outpouring, and so excited to be able to share this second story, which at the time we didn't know when that was going to happen.
Right.
So here we are, right?
Well,
With
Aaron,
part two.
I know that you did most of the interviews over the phone, right? For this second story.
For the second story,
For the second
yes.
story.
We did some FaceTime.
So today is the first time you've seen Derek?
Yes, it is, in person. This is the first time we've seen each other, and he can tell you how I reacted when I walked in.
I wish we had a camera going
I
with that,
know.
right?
I was like, I'm gonna keep it together. No. Who cares? No, it was. It's just, you guys know what you mean to me, and it's really been such an honor that you've entrusted this story, the sacred story of your life's journey, to and what a.
You started, you
You started it.
You were my first phone call. And honestly, when I saw your picture and just read some of the work that you had done, I don't know, I knew you were the one. And for that, I'll be forever grateful.
Well,
For you.
forever grateful for you guys. And
So.
we talked about this a little bit earlier, and I'm sure we'll continue, but just the awareness that you're saving lives. You've already heard from so many people around the world. And so just continuing to get awareness out there is so important, especially today.
And Jerry, I know that you've also, the family's received, through GoFundMe and different fundraisers, just incredible support from people, right?
Yeah.
What's that been like?
Like I said, the first month, 32 days, we got at least 4 cards in the mail every day. It's, we're just from a small community too, and man, it's just, unbelievable support you get in those small communities.
Yeah.
My brother said once, well, one bleeds, we all bleed, so.
That's Harbor Beach, right?
Yeah. It was, I never would have expected that. It was unreal.
Yeah. And I know it is a tight-knit community, and heck, Derek was a football star too, right?
Yes.
Not everyone rushes for 1,000 yards
Yeah.
in a season, so we know that you are a tough fighter. In the article that people can read, when they get it in their doorsteps or they read it online, Derek, you have a thank you message to people.
Mm-hmm.
Was that important for you to include that?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone that helped, supported me and my family. I would say thank you. None of this would be possible without them, my family, God. Yeah, I'm forever thankful for everyone that helped me throughout this journey.
Forever thankful. That's words to live on right there. Lisa, where do things stand next for Derek in his journey?
So Derek still needs 2 more surgeries. Okay. So his next surgery will be actually inside of his mouth. So the donor's teeth are pretty poor quality. So all of his teeth need to be surgically removed.
Okay.
And then he'll go to full dentures. And then after dentures and after his bone is able to heal in about a year, he'll go to dental implants,
Okay.
teeth implants.
So a little bit of road ahead.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
You're almost
We're
there. Yeah.
No,
See the light at the end of the tunnel
Yes.
there.
But when are you going to eat pizza? That's what everyone wants.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't wait for that day.
Yeah, it's not scheduled yet. We've exhausted his GoFundMe. So, and we have an outstanding balance out there now.
I bet.
So we're just gonna, put it in God's hands, and we'll know when the time is right,
Right.
and we're able to, afford it.
Right. Well, I'm sure as a parent, do you think as a parent, I should say, that did it test your relationship with God at any point? Because it sounds like just hearing you was like, okay, this is good. It's all God's in hands.
Yeah, no, the beginning wasn't like that.
It's a little rough and being a lot of, like she said, a lot of whys.
I mean, the first, I would
You
say.
never think it's going to happen to one of your own.
Right.
Seriously, it's very close in family. And
The first year was rough. I was mad. There was anger, and you take the guilt that you have of yourself of what did we do wrong?
yeah, we're a bad parents.
What signs did I miss?
What did we miss? Why didn't we see it? And you put your blame on someone, and I was mad at God. Why my family? Why my son? Why my son? And it took, it took some time for me to work through that. And, but as these miracles have came and through the years, especially with the face transplant, I really feel now that this has always been God's plan for Derek, always. Just from him being a little boy, he's always had a special relationship. I was sharing earlier that, when he was making his first communion, in his closet, he had a crucifix and he put his holy water in there and he had a little stool in there and he would go into his closet and pray. And I thought, wow, he might be a priest someday, I don't know. And then, so he's always had that special bond. But, as the years went and I could see this was, in God's hands, and I was starting to feel more peace with it, that, it's going to be a long journey, but it's going to be okay. That it just really turned into God's story. We were just the family that was selected to tell the story. And
Lisa, was there a moment that happened? Was there something that triggered that you wanted? You know what? I'm just going to surrender everything.
Yeah, probably. I had multiple moments like that. You try to be really strong and brave for, because we had 4 other children, and, we had a son in college at the time, and a son in high school, and a son in elementary school, and a daughter in kindergarten. And, how do you keep their lives normal without our family just falling apart? Yeah. And so there was, the strong face during the day, and then just lots of tears at night, Both of us, at night would, hold hands and just, lots of crying. And I don't know, it just came to a point that, you hear the saying, don't look in the rear view mirror, look forward. And I just had a moment where, stop looking back of what could have been, what should have been, You know, he was going to college to be a nurse. You know, he was an all-state football player. You know, those things aren't going to happen, but there's still a future ahead of him. He lived for a reason, and the reason will come, right? And I still didn't know what the reason was, right? But as he healed, and he never lost faith, and he never had a bad attitude, and he was always positive, I'm like, okay, he's here to tell God's story.
Erin, is there anything else you want to ask the family before we wrap things up? I mean, I really want to respect their time.
Yeah, so we're just so grateful, and thank you for allowing this story to be told through a faith lens too, because I think that that's such a central part of your story and what God's done, and with your invitation and to God to come into your lives, to surrender, and to just have total confidence. I think that's something that when we talked, I just have faith. Like, God's going to work it out. I don't know how he's going to work it out. I mean, even as we talk about this next chapter, right? You don't know what that looks like.
We don't.
But God's certainly writing an incredible story that only he could write. So we'll continue to be following.
Well, one last thing from me. While people, because this is such a national story, Erin mentioned, obviously, we're looking at it through the faith lens, but there'll be others looking at it from the medical side of things because it is such a miracle, right? I looked at some of the videos that Mayo Clinic's already provided, and just to think of how this happens, right? It's just unbelievable what God has blessed these talented people to do. Right? There were 80 people, right, on the team.
They were between the donor and Derek.
Yeah, that's just an incredible amount of support to think about, right?
Yeah.
What do you want people to know about your family that maybe are watching you on like a national network, or you know what I mean, or a national program? Derek, what do you want people to know about you?
You have something on your chest, talk to someone, parents, brother, sister, whoever. Get it off your chest, you'll feel a lot better. I kept it in, trying to be a tough guy. But I wish I would have talked to someone. I would have felt a lot better in the end.
Don't be a tough guy. Talk to someone.
Stay positive.
Stay positive. Lisa, what would you want people to know about your family?
Oh, I would want people to know that when you're faced with something, number one, don't lose faith, even when it's hard. Number two, be strong for your family. It takes courage. It takes strength. Don't take things for granted, like a strong marriage, because you're
Several people come up and ask me, you thought I'd get a divorce through this ordeal.
Yeah.
I said, come on, God dealt us with this. We were going to deal with it. It made us stronger, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Our family grew.
so and there's a lot of evil in the world nowadays, and I would want to share to don't get wrapped up in the social media and everything that can be so hurtful, especially to that teenage young 20 generation, because it's such a tough time and it's so hard to grow up right now with everything that's out there, and support each other and love each other, unconditional love for your children. I think as a parent, I've always felt that, and that's not always been easy, right? I've seen Derek look multiple ways, and he looked one way from birth until 19, and then at the age of 19, he really lost his face, and from 19 until 29, he looked very different, right? And then now from his transplant till now, so it's been a journey of faith, hope, and love. That's what I would say. So, and just
good way
stay
to put
close.
it. Good way to put it. All right, so the website is Great Lakes Bay Catholic.
.org.
.org?
Yes, and I'm sure on the website, on the diocesan website as well.
Saginaw.org. Now, you have a website too, right? Are you
We
using
do.
it? Okay,
We
what is
do.
that?
DerekPfaff.com.
Okay. And Puff is spelled?
Pfaff.
I've never seen a spelling like that before.
Thank you.
And I was like, wow, okay, that's how you say it.
Yes,
Right.
it is.
Well, thank you very much for your time, for being here, and
Yeah.
allowing us to tell your story. And thank you, Erin, for
Thanks for
your
allowing
incredible
me.
work. Oh,
Well, thanks for allowing me to be part of it.
Yeah.
It's really been a gift and a blessing.
thank you. All right, folks, that's it for today's podcast. If you want to find out what's happening next, make sure to check us out, Saginaw.org. Look for the United in Mission, the podcast, One Heart and One Mind. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.